Good luck with that. Like, there's a lot of stuff. There's in many respects, the world is going to get harder, and I don't think that means that life can't be good or fun or whatever. Like, you know, there are people, there are like uncontacted tribes out in the so right now on the North Sentinelese Island. Someone is straight up hitting the yoinky sploinky, and everyone else is laughing, even though they're all probably going to live to like 35 or something. Okay, you can have a good life even if things are difficult. I'm not saying it's all doom and gloom. I'm just saying we're going to have to try a little bit harder. So with that in mind, can we put, and I'm begging you, and this isn't meant to like bully these people, but we need to stop with, okay, so this isn't like a call out post. I'm using this as an example to springboard off of, okay? But I saw both of these go negatively viral, like get polarized viral. You'll immediately understand why. I'm not even going to dedicate much time to like digging into these, but unpopular opinion. But I think the left needs to move away from using, quote, the working class, end quote. It positions disabled people who can't work as the enemies of workers. In a mass disabling event where more and more people are unable to work in the coming years, how can we conceptualize work and labor need a radical reimagining from a disability justice framework? This goes on for a really long time. Of course it does. And then from the disability enthusiast we have, y'all aren't going to like me, but reading is a privilege. You need free time, the education, the ability, access to books, etc. But we should be helping each other access books however we can and sharing info and stories in a number of mediums. This is in response to somebody saying that we should all try to read more. Organizers who want their community to be literate or want them to access certain info should first get to know what their community's access needs are, such and such and such. And here's a drawing of something related to Gaza, it seems, which is very sad and not relevant to the point that I was making. But, you know, I don't need to like dig into what's wrong with these sentiments, right? Unfortunately, and this has been a problem with anti-ableist activism for a while, it seems like this is honestly the case with a lot of stuff, especially concerning mental illness. A lot of the, I'm trying to think of how to put this without coming across like a little mean. A lot of the sentiment around these types of organizers seems more concerned with making people complacent in weakness than helping people become strong and independent, if that makes sense. And you can read a bunch of uncharitable shit into what I just said if you want to, because you're like an asshole maybe, but like what I'm saying here is, I think, straightforwardly, understandably true, and you know, I stick to that. You know, like if there was like a society of people, not society I should say, or like a support group for people who had recently gotten into a car accident and they all have like various injuries, the solution to their problem should be physical therapy, right? Like obviously there's a lot they have to do, but ideally everyone there should try to get physical therapy, because if you can't walk anymore, you want to be able to walk again, and if you can only kind of hobble, you want to be able to walk strongly, and so on and so forth. And sometimes I feel like in these online communities, especially with regards to like mental unwellness, like neuroatypicality, rather than people helping each other with physical therapy, instead they're like saying that the assumption that they should have to walk after a car accident is ableist, and trying to reassure each other that it's fine to permanently live with like hobbled walking because it would take effort to learn how to walk again normally. Does that make sense? This all sounds very psyopy. It does sound psyopy, but there are there are a lot of people online who don't have the best lives, and they're very compassionate, at least within their own communities. And for that reason, their compassion kind of overwhelms their good sense when it comes to stuff like the need for self-improvement, okay? I see stuff like this all the time with mental illness. There are anorexia community, like eating disorder communities, anorexia, bulimia, whatever, where rather than trying to fatten up a little bit and not be crazy about that shit, they like reassure each other that it's fine to always want to have every rib showing through your skin. Or there are communities of depressed people where they, you know, rather than like encouraging each other to kind of like aggressively go outside and touch grass and like interact with people, they all kind of fall into a cycle of learned helplessness where they think it's okay to reaffirm their worst patterns of behavior with it's okay, it'll be better tomorrow. And that's not a bad thing to say, but if you're saying it every day to a person for whom it's not true, it isn't better tomorrow, past a point they do have to be kind of like launched out of a cannon at a patch of grass to touch. You get it, right? There are communities online that are like this. Both of these pertain mostly to like physical disability. I guess like illiteracy isn't a physical disability, but you know what I mean. It's not necessarily neuroatypicality. But we need to leave sentiments like this in the dustbin of history. This sentiment is created in a very privileged environment, okay? I promise you that the North Sentinelese are not forming, they're not like engraving into rocks, like rock Twitter threads. About how it's ableist to learn how to weave baskets or whatever, okay? Like, they're not doing this, all right? Only in very comfortable, privileged communities are people even given the opportunity to learn that kind of helplessness because, let's be real, if things were really difficult, that helplessness would end their lives. I don't think that's a good thing. I just think that people should try to stay on their toes, even when life is comfortable enough that they could survive not. I saw this as well, and this tweet is like the tweet here is making fun of it, not like showcasing it in an affirmative or positive sense. But I commented on this. I said, why is it that there are so many like tender queer organizing pamphlets that look like they were drawn for and by 5-year-olds? Does anyone else understand why? Like, isn't that a little bit like infantilizing? Have you noticed that? Where there's this like, I don't know if it's Tumblr necessarily, but this looks like it's for a 5-year-old, but this is meant to be for adults. This would not motivate me to overthrow capitalism, I guess is what I'm saying. I know it's different strokes for different folks, but like this is literally just like drawn for 5-year-olds. We're talking about political organizing here. We're not talking about like, how to do gardening, except I guess we are. Because one of the things here are some things that you can do as a community member to resist individualism and the destruction of community solidarity. So I want to talk for a second, if I may, because I think it fits in the same category because it's also about learned helplessness, just in a different way. I think that this also needs to be relegated to the dustbin of history. And by this, I mean, what would they call it? Tourist activism? There's a better term for it than that. What is it? It's called like, it's when you're engaging... No, not slacktivism necessarily, but or hobbyism. I think it's hobbyist or hobbyist activism is what I'm thinking of, where you want to do things, but you also want to feel like you're being politically effective. So you delude yourself into thinking that what you're doing is radical activism, hobbyist activism, radical reading clubs, make radical art, making radical zines together. Stop using the term radical, please. Radical theater, community gardening, hand out masks and COVID tests. I get this was probably made a few years ago, I guess. So this is an example. I think this is also a kind of learned helplessness because, look, I'm going to be real with you guys, okay? There are a lot of people online who will tell you stupid shit like, you can overthrow capitalism by gardening or like growing your own tomatoes. No, you can't. Modern society demands that your food be grown in gigantic fields managed by experts. I'm sorry, that's how it is, okay? There is no way around the mathematics and the thermodynamics of this. Everyone loves to grow their own food until it comes time for them to actually manage their own garden. Have you managed a garden? I love going outside one morning to see that like all my food is and I don't know why, because it was some like obscure arcane like cultivation strategy that you forgot to implement and now you starve to death. That's great. Stop saying thermodynamics for no reason. I know I shouldn't, but it does make me happy. And that's what we call radical linguistic descriptivism, okay? It's okay to have the hobbies that you enjoy. All right? That's cool. That's thermodynamic, as they might say. It's radically thermodynamic. Enough. That's cool to have your hobbies, all right? But like, there are a very small number of things that can actually meaningfully resist the status quo in any kind of like actual what like. Do you know Rent? You know Rent the musical, where it's the people with like the gay people in New York with the AIDS. And they're like really annoying and it's a bad musical and they're really annoying and they're acting like they're transformatively changing the status quo and destroying the system and so on. But in reality, they're just being like selfish young adults. I love it. Shut up. I'm not here to argue about it, but you understand what I mean, right? You can like Rent, but you understand what I'm talking about, right? No, I haven't seen it. That's probably for the best. I mean, I haven't. I've only seen the Lindsay Ellis video on it. Gay Hamilton? You mean Hamilton? Have you ever seen anyone do heterosexual shipping from Hamilton? Does anyone even give a fuck about Eliza? When was the last time you saw anyone drawing Alexander? And okay, anyway, the main thing that is actually capable of challenging the status quo is organized labor. That's it. A strike. That's it. That's the reason why everyone is terrified of strikes. Remember when the dock workers strike on the East Coast was brewing, and we looked over the Fox News business channel, and every rich mother the entire East Coast was showing up to say, this is terrible, this is going to destroy the country. And then like they ended up settling the strike after 4 days or something, because the idea of a dock worker strike is petrifying, like because you would instantly shut the